The following day. The courtyard of Sunspear was sweltering by midday, the Dornish sun beating down upon the sandstone with an intensity that made the very air shimmer and dance. Yet despite the heat, a sizable crowd had gathered along the shaded arcades and sides, nobles, knights, guards, and curious courtiers murmuring in anticipation, eager to see what is a rare occasion. At the heart of the square, two men stood facing each other, weapons drawn. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, circled with a disarming smirk curled like a scimitar on his lips. His bronze-colored spear glinted in the sun, its point dancing with restless energy. Across from him, Robb Stark adjusted his grip on the longsword gifted to him by his father, its northern steel and dark handle, a stark contrast to the Dornish brightness around him. Arianne Martell leaned lazily against a carved pillar in the shade. Her dark eyes under long lashes were transfixed on the northern air. Her expression was unreadable to most, a mixture of interest, amusement, and something more elusive, simmering beneath her gaze. Around her, the sand snakes sat or stood with keen eyes, whispering wagers and commentary. "Are they truly going to fight?" Sarella asked, peering from under her wide-brimmed hat. "It's a duel, not a battle," Tywin replied, fingers laced together neatly. "But the spear still bites." "Oberyn's going to play with him," Nymeria said. "He always does it first." Obara said nothing. Her face and stance were uptight as her knee bounced from where she sat. "Not always," Arianne murmured, her gaze still on Robb. "Let's see if this wolf bites back." Near the edge of the practice yard, Jon Snow stood with arms crossed, brow furrowed beneath dark curls damp with sweat. Beside him, Jory Castle wore the weary patience of a man who'd seen too many young men with something to prove. As much as it would shame him, he would wager if asked, on Prince Oberyn on virtue of his experience and cunning. "I don't like this," Jon muttered. "Oberyn's not the sort to go easy." "No," Jory said, eyeing the Red Viper carefully. "But your brother's not the sort to back down, either." "I never said he was." They turned back to the center just as Oberyn lunged. The Dornish prince moved like a serpent, fluid and swift, a thrust of the spear, a feint, a retreat. Robb parried with disciplined precision, the edge of his blade catching the shaft and sliding at his side. He stepped in, closing the distance where the spear was weakest, and brought his sword down in a powerful arc. Oberyn spun away with the grace of a dancer, the butt of his spear catching Robb's leg mid-turn. The young Stark stumbled but didn't fall, recovering fast enough to block a follow-up thrust aimed at his ribs. He raised the longsword to center at Oberyn's chest, ready to block or strike. From the shade, Arianne's full lips parted slightly. "He's quicker than I thought," she said under her breath. "He's not your usual northern brute," said Nymeria. "And he's pretty." Arianne smirked. "That he is." Back in the yard, Robb adjusted his stance, eyes narrowing. Sweat glistened at his brow, but he didn't look winded. If anything, he looked sharper now, more focused. "You're fast," Robb said aloud, voice steady. "And you're well-trained," Oberyn replied, twirling his spear. "Good. That makes this more fun." They clashed again, steel against steel, the clatter echoing off the stones. Robb pressed harder this time, forcing Oberyn back with a flurry of strikes that forced the Dornishman to retreat several steps. A gasp rose from the crowd. Then, with a grin, Oberyn reversed his retreat in a heartbeat. He launched forward, sweeping Robb's legs with the haft of the spear and simultaneously twisting into a thrust that nearly clipped his opponent's shoulder. Robb dropped into a roll, came up on one knee, and slashed, the blade slicing Oberyn's sleeve. A line of crimson welled on his bicep. The crowd murmured louder now. Oberyn glanced at the cut, then at Robb. He laughed, not mockingly, but with something almost pleased. "Very good, Wolf." "You're bleeding," Robb said. Oberyn raised an eyebrow, amused. "Only a little. Do you yield?" Robb asked with half a grin. "In Dorne, we don't yield until we're dead," Oberyn replied. "And I quite like living." Robb's grin widened. "Then you should at least match me." Oberyn smirked in agreement and launched a flurry of an assault, spear flashing out like quicksilver. Robb backpedaled with grace, sword countering each swing and parrying each thrust. His form was airtight, his footwork perfect. Ser Roderick would be proud of him if he saw how he was handling the Red Viper. Just as he thought he had beat off Oberyn's assault, Robb noticed a shift in his stance and felt his eyes widened as he saw Oberyn's left hand dart out. A curved dagger. Robb had thought he'd gotten a good measure of Oberyn's battle style, but with him now wielding his spear one-handed, with a dagger to follow up any openings, Robb was now off tempo. The momentum was against him. Jory grimaced, already seeing the end. Robb jumped to the side, swinging his sword out to blast through Oberyn's defense, a last-ditch effort, only to find the shine of steel under his face and right at his neck. His sword was frozen where he held it up in the air, stuck in half-swing. Oberyn grinned triumphantly. "Do you yield, wolf?" Robb chuckled as he looked down at the dagger that was an inch from severing his throat. "I'm not so prideful to know when I'm beat. I yield." He stepped back, lowering his sword. Oberyn mirrored the gesture, resting the butt of his spear against the ground and giving a short, theatrical bow. The crowd applauded, some genuinely, others with polite surprise. The duel had not gone the way many had expected. Arianne straightened from her pillar, clapping softly, a private smile playing at her lips. "Well," she said, "perhaps this wolf won't melt in the sun after all." As Robb approached, Jon was already walking toward him. "You're not hurt?" Jon asked, concern creasing his features. "Only my pride," Robb said with a tired chuckle. "That man moves like water. Father and Ser Roderick never attacked that fast ever." "He's been killing since before you were born," Jory added. "And you held your own." Robb looked back toward Oberyn, who was already laughing with his daughters, blood still trickling down his arm. "Held my own," Robb echoed quietly. Then his eyes drifted past the Viper to Arianne, watching him with her sultry stare. He met her gaze and felt his lips perk up, his eyes brightening, hoping he impressed her. She didn't look away. She blew a kiss at him and moved with her cousins to go back inside, disappearing out of sight. A few hours later. The meeting chamber atop the Tower of the Sun was quiet save for the rustle of silk curtains and the chirps of cicadas beyond the arched windows. The sun had started to fall below the horizon, casting Sunspear in gold, pink, and rose. A table had been set with wine, olives, and sweetmeats, but few had touched them. Robb Stark sat across from Prince Doran, flanked by Jon Snow and Jory Castle, both standing as quiet sentinels. Across from them, Arianne Martell reclined beside her father, eyes bright, and Oberyn sat sprawled like a lazy panther on a nearby couch, already sipping from a goblet of arbor red. "Let us not pretend this is the first we speak of marriage," Doran said, his voice soft and calm. "Your father and I exchanged words long before your journey, as have I and Lord Arryn. We agreed, in principle, to this arrangement. What remains is not the if, but the how, and whether the North and Dorne can walk side by side when the winds change or should the tides move against us." Robb inclined his head. "My father sent me to show that our intentions are not hollow words. Dorne deserves respect, not just to be courted from afar, but met as equals. I came to honor that, and to see if you and my niece can stand the sight of each other," Oberyn said lightly. Robb smiled slightly, casting a glance toward Arianne. "That too." Arianne's eyes glittered. "You've stood the sight of me for some days now, Stark. And you've done so without fleeing, so I suppose there is hope." Jory cleared his throat discreetly. Jon, leaning near the window, gave Robb a faint smirk. Doran gave a patient sigh. "Forgive my brother and daughter. They delight in games." "I grew up with Arya," Robb said. "I'm used to sharp tongues." "She must be a delight," Arianne said. "She is," Robb replied, then added, though not so clever at hiding her curiosity. "And am I?" "No," he said, "but I don't mind." Oberyn chuckled. "Seven save us. The Northerner has a pulse, and one after all." Doran, ever composed, lifted a hand. "Let us speak clearly now. We agreed on an alliance between House Stark and House Martell. But before anything is bound by faith or flesh, I must know your understanding of what that means. For you. For your people." Robb sat straighter. "My father rules the North and is allied to the Riverlands. He believes the realm grows more unstable with each passing moon. King Robert may feast and hunt, but others circle the throne like vultures. The North looks south and sees only disorder and corruption. But Dorne has stood apart. Strong, patient, and proud." Doran nodded slowly, weighing every word. "If this match proceeds," Robb continued, "it will be more than a marriage. It will be a message. That the old grudges can be put to rest. That the North and Dorne are not pawns in the games of the Crownlands, or the Reach, or the Westerlands." "And if war comes?" Oberyn asked. "Would your father bleed for Dorne? Would you?" "If Dorne is threatened," Robb said, "we do not stand idle. We remember our oaths, as we have 100 times before. And if the North is called traitor or enemy for standing apart or against royal quarrels, will Dorne lend its spears? You would have Dorne take sides in a war that is yet to come?" Doran asked quietly. "I would have Dorne know that, if it comes, it will not stand alone." A heavy silence followed that, broken only by the sound of wine being poured. Oberyn lifted his goblet. "I rather like him. I thought you might, Arryn said, not looking away from Robb. He's not like the other boys. He watches, listens, learns. Robb flushed slightly but did not look away. So do you? Doran leaned forward, his eyes deadly serious. Robb could feel some nervousness bubble up inside him under his stare. Remember carefully that aside from military support, we are talking about a complete shift of dynamics, relations, and strategy. Northern ice for Dornish spices. Northern furs for Dornish silks. Northern ironwood for Dornish wine and fruit. We would even allow for a few more weirwood trees to be planted here to accommodate you and your men. Robb gave a curt, strong nod. I understand. And I'm grateful for your considerations and tact. Doran exhaled slowly. Then the marriage may go forward. But it must not be hasty nor rushed. You will remain in Sunspear, young Stark. Learn our customs and way of life. Let my daughter learn yours. You will speak to our lords, break bread at our tables. When the time comes, say, the end of this year, we will speak vows and a treaty both. Robb nodded. That's fair. He glanced at the two men beside him. I would like for Jory and my brother to stay here until the wedding. I'm sure you wouldn't mind. The two glanced at Robb, questions in their eyes, but said nothing. Not their place to bring anything up yet. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem. And in the meantime, Oberyn said, rising with his wine, we shall see what blooms in this heat. I dare say this is the most interesting thing to happen here in months. Doran leaned back into the comfort of his chair, but a small, knowing smile touched his lips. Arryn stood gracefully, and with a faint smile said, Come, Wolf. I'll show you some of the towers. You haven't seen them by starlight, and in the dark. Robb hesitated, then looked to Jon, who gave him a silent shrug of your funeral, and to Jory, who offered no more than a funny, wry look. I'd be honored, Princess, Robb said, rising to follow her. Oberyn's voice drifted after them, amused and warm. Careful, boy. My niece definitely bites.